Just because you are angry does not mean you can't be smart about it. In this video, I will show you one of the multi-classes that I have been very much enjoying to have with me, in addition to my previous video, which is of course, my Warlock Paladin multi-class. This will be a Barbarian fighter multi-class with a couple of considerations you have to make along the way. Now, you can play this character as the primary protagonist, your character, so to speak. Although, mind you, we will be dumping charisma as a stat. So do make sure that you have another character who can do the dialogue, shenanigans, or just make her Karlach, which is what I would recommend. It is what I have done. And you will have a powerhouse that won't die, can fly across the battleground by using something called jump, believe it or not, due to a little feat we'll take, as well as just dish out such incredible damage, while also being able to protect your team by reducing the enemy damage that they can do by disarming, knocking them prone, making them frightened, or just killing them outright, because once again, we are doing a tremendous amount of damage. If any of this sounds good to you, stick around. Check the comments below for any particular time codes, and we'll dive right in. So at the start of the creation of a character like this, make sure that you have a good race if you make this your own character. I would recommend something that has access to more movement speed, because you are melee after all, maybe a wood elf. A tiefling is always good because you get some potential smite shenanigans for more burst. But kind of be considerate of the fact that you are going to be melee. Or I would recommend strongly Zariel, because she is one of those tieflings that has that burst damage built in, and Zariel being a barbarian to start off with is always lovely. You can also start this off as a fighter. There's no real difference there. I, however, just like barbarian in the early levels because of the rage, the reckless attack, and the infinite tankiness that they get, which is very, very lovely. In terms of abilities, this may seem a little weird. Now, if you have Auntie's gift, if you know what I refer to, not to spoil too much, I would recommend doing this so far. If you have the Auntie, if you don't, it's up to you. You could still do this and simply forget the first feat I am going to take. That's entirely up to you. Otherwise, make sure your constitution is high, your strength is at least a 17, and I pick up wisdom simply because I don't want to get CC'd, because if a barbarian doesn't get damaged or doesn't attack in a round, they lose their rage, and that's just a waste. The reason why we have no dexterity is because we're dumping that entirely because we have an item that gives us 18 dexterity. You can get that from the Githyanki Kresh. There's a vendor there. It sells that item. It's very powerful and fairly cheap at the time of this recording, and allows us to get 18 dexterity while dumping all the stats, allowing us to pump things like wisdom, in kind of inoculating us against CC. However, if you don't have that item, you maybe missed it, or you couldn't afford it, or you don't have it yet, I would recommend just dumping charisma. I would recommend dumping some wisdom, and at least getting a +2 to dexterity to facilitate your medium armor in case you end up running with medium armor. Other than that, don't worry about it. You can always respec if it doesn't work out. Now, the reason why medium armor is an option, I will show you guys in just a bit as well, because in this game, medium armor for Barbarian isn't really punished. You just lose your unarmored defense, but there's no movement speed penalties, no nothing. Not up until heavy armor, which is why we can start as a Barbarian and be monstrously fine. Now, I don't use Karlach as my face of the party, so I don't need things like intimidation. What I do prefer is a perception of every character that has like a decent wisdom, and of course, an animal handling is fairly nice, but if you prefer a nature, that's okay too. But since I also use Karlach to talk to animals, animal handling, a little bit of perception, and no penalty to charisma is always nice. So that's kind of my thought process there, but if you just use her for go bonk, go hard, it's entirely up to you, as long as your constitution and strength are good. Now, the reason why we want the medium armor is because there are items in the game like Bone Spike Garb. This doesn't require any armor proficiency. This is what you would expect for a rage type character. However, you can also take Armor of Agility, which has a base armor class of 17, and then allows you to add all your dexterity while also increasing your saving throws. It's incredibly powerful. Look at our AC, 17, We equip this, it becomes 21. As a barbarian without shield is insane. This, of course, is made possible because of the gloves of dexterity, which once again you can find in that Githyanki crash. Now, even if I just had the 14 dexterity plus 12, you know, it would have been 17 plus 2, which would have been 19. So we would have only lost 2 AC here. So it still would have been better compared to wearing no armor with this particular setup. Now, of course, there are other pieces of gear that increases your strength or increases your con, which also increases your AC because you're a barbarian. It's entirely up to you what gear you kind of build around. But that's the beauty of this game. There's so many ways to roam, you might get lost. I also have like a little bit of regen because I am the tank for this party with this character. I also love a little bit of Misty Step just in case my other trick doesn't work out. I also can't really be stopped. It's just overall a really, really nice tank character that can actually knock people down and CC them as well. But we'll get to that in just a second as we actually go to level 2. Oh, before I do that, consider indeed a two-handed weapon. Corpse Grinder is phenomenal. It's the one I'm using, but any kind of good greatsword might even be better, or anything that's just a nice 2d6 or a d12 will do it. You could go with like a halberd like I have over here. This is the helmet for my main character actually, and then take polearm mastery as opposed to another feat or attribute increase. The problem, however, is that with polearm mastery you can do a bonus action if you use your main action to attack, which is really, really good, but right now at the time of this recording the bonus action is bugged. It doesn't scale well, not all damage is applied, like rage damage does not apply, certain other flat damages do not account for the total damage when you're supposed to get them on that bonus attack, so it's a little weird. And besides, if we're using a two-handed weapon with Great Weapon Master, we do have plenty of times we are going to be using a third attack with that bonus action, as well as other things we can do will use bonus action as well, like moving around, jumping, and all kinds of healing potential. So let us actually get to level 2 and talk about all those options we are going to give this character. We're going to go to Barbarian level 2. We're going to get Danger Sense, which is just really, really nice, and Reckless Attack. Now, Reckless Attack is actually a skill that gets triggered if you miss automatically. You can set it as a reaction almost. So if you don't miss, you don't have to use Reckless Attack, you don't take the disadvantage, or you don't take the advantage debuff for the enemies as a result. But if you do miss, you get to make Reckless Attack. You don't have to call it prior to making your first attack in this game, which is very, very efficient. That Reckless Attack also allows us to pick up Great Weapon Master in the early game, which is incredibly, incredibly broken. Getting plus 10 damage and the occasional extra hit, incredibly nice. Speaking of things that are really, really nice, we're going to get Legacy of Avernus, which is just a little bit of bonus damage. Very lovely. Mind you, it does take a bonus action and an action. Be conscious of that. But because we're not planning to use our bonus action for a lot, you will have ample opportunity to use this. We will be using the Wild Heart subclass. The reason why we don't use Berserker is because although Frenzied Strike will give us a constant bonus action attack, reliably so, it also generates Frenzied Strain, which removes the attack penalty or increases an attack penalty for us, which means we're going to miss more and more and more. It also makes it more difficult to get the benefits of the plus 10 damage from Great Weapon Mastery, so I don't recommend it. And we have so many bonus action and quite frequently bonus action attacks that this seems kind of like a waste and just really weird to do. Wild Heart, on the other hand, will give us access to the Speak with Animals, as I do use that with Karlach, but also damage reduction against everything except psychic damage, making us an incredible, difficult target to take out, especially with good con and a high hit die. Lasts for 10 turns, just make sure you occasionally attack or take some damage so you don't lose it during combat, and also got a free heal for an action, which can be quite useful in case you try not to die. Take whatever piercings you want. You have some other options if you feel like Bearheart would be overkill for the tank, depending on the difficulty you play on, which might facilitate more jump, more advantage for a heavy melee group maybe. You have some options. I, however, would strongly recommend the Bearheart. It's too good to have a resistance against all damage except psychic. It's too good. It's too good. Now we go to level 4. We get the feat. Now at this point, you can take Great Weapon Master. It's entirely up to you. I, however, found that I was already doing enough damage to kill things pretty quickly. I found a nice weapon early on. But yeah, Great Weapon Master does give you the extra bonus hit on a critical hit or a kill. So you get this quite frequently. And then also you have the -5 penalty to attack rolls on top of the +10 damage. Now, because we have Reckless Attack, you can take this right now, and it would be the best way to do so. If you just want to start smashing things, take your Great Weapon Master, use your Reckless Attack, which you will oftentimes be prompted for, and you will just start smashing things while being very difficult to kill. Another feat, assuming you have not, assuming you've taken at least one uneven stat in Strength, and you don't feel the need for the ability improvement that you can take, is Athlete. This is the one I actually am taking myself right now at this level, because not only does it prevent me from losing all my movement speed when I'm prone, it also increases my jumping distance by 50%, and jump is based off Strength. Our primary stat is Strength. We're going to be able to jump across the entire battlefield, but not just across, but also above the battlefield and jump down the battlefield. It also allows you to jump across a lot of danger or over particular blockades and such. Essentially, this for Karlach, or for this kind of build, essentially gives you a permanent fly. However, there are other ways to get around in this game. For example, if I have given her some of the special powers that you may encounter later in the game and get fly, you don't need this. In which case, I would recommend picking up Great Weapon Master and Ability Improvement. However, I have maintained the purity on Karlach, as well as not found like a permanent reliable way, except for like Misty Step boots and such, but you do run out on those, and this allows me to always use my bonus action just to jump across the battlefield, and it's so good. I would highly recommend trying it out. Make sure you get your 18 Strength, and if you don't like it, that's okay. You just take the Ability Improvement or the Great Weapon Master and you're fine. This is just a fun little thing that I experimented with, and I really ended up liking it. Now, if you are doing this from scratch, if you're building this character from scratch, you just became level 5, you want to take Barbarian 5 right now. Not only because the fast movement speed, which is really, really good, but the extra attack. So if you are first time level 5, take the level 5 Barbarian, and then you will switch to Fighter. Alright? Because the extra attack is too much of a powerful tool. And then at level 9, you will respec your character to a 5 Fighter for Barbarian. So we're going to pretend we are currently in the respec for being level 9 or higher, and we're going to get our extra attack by simply switching to Fighter and getting 5 levels in Fighter. But once again, if you want the extra attack on a fresh character, go to Barbarian 5 and respec later. Fighter 1 will give us Great Weapon Fighting, which is a phenomenal fighting style, increasing the liability of the damage rolls. We roll a 1 or 2, we get to re-roll it. Very, very good to get high damage from your heavy two-handed weapons. Very good. The class itself will also give us Second Wind, and because we are level 5, we also get access to Legacy of Avernus Branding Smite, which comes back on a long rest for a little bit of burst damage. Does take a bonus action and an action, so be wary of that, but it's just nice to have. So, we're going to continue the respec, of course. This will allow us to get Action Search for Fighter 2, which is incredibly powerful and extra action. Just more smashing. It's good for burst damage. Comes back every short rest, if I'm not mistaken, and allows you to really pump in the damage to take out a very difficult target, or just really put the hurt on a boss, especially once we get to level 3, and we can start using maneuvers to amp up our damage and to get additional benefits. Now, of course, if you had taken that Barbarian 5, you would only be Fighter 2 right now. But once again, we are doing the respec into the ultimate build. Battle Master is the way we go. Champion is just not really all that great, and Eldritch Knight is useless. Battle Master gives us superiority die, 4 of them. This will increase to 5 later. But these are kind of like mini smites, like little mini D8 smites. If you were a pure fighter or a pure-ish fighter at level 10, they would become D10s, which is an average damage of 1 more, which is not very important. But they come back on short rest. So right now, every time we short rest, we get 4 superiority die. So that's a total of 12 die per long rest. 12 mini smites. That are very effective. The only mandatory one that I would strongly recommend is Disarming Attack. Not only does it give you the D8, It also makes it so that the enemy might drop their weapon, which is very, very powerful. I have completely nullified bosses in the game and very, very powerful mobs that would otherwise do 3d12 plus 5 on my team if I was grouped up incorrectly. Completely nullified them with disarming attack, and I have certain bosses completely made laughable. Like, I could out-heal them. That's how ridiculously low their damage became by simply trying to fist me as opposed to hit me with their weapon. Because they don't seem to pick it up. I'm not sure if that's a bug or not, but it seems to be very powerful right now. And the bonus damage is always going to be guaranteed value, because as you can read on that line there, on miss does not spend the superiority die. So it's always going to have guaranteed value on the damage, because it only takes the superiority die if it hits and not when it misses. There's some really good ones here. If you want to hit more often, precision attack might be nice if you've taken an early great weapon master. I would also maybe recommend riposte. It's essentially a stronger attack of opportunity when they miss you, and if you have good AC, you can do a retaliation strike. It's a full swing with a bonus 1d8. It's very, very lovely. It really helps the action economy in your favor. Sweeping attack is kind of bad, but it does give you an AoE option. Trip attack knocks enemies prone, which is very lovely, but do be wary. If enemies are prone, your ranged units may suffer some problems hitting them. But it does if you have a heavy melee team. Trip attack is lovely. Evasive footwork is personally the one I run, because it allows me to remove my reckless attack debuff by essentially nullifying the disadvantage or the advantage the enemy gets by using evasive footwork. And if I don't use reckless attack, because my hit is so nice right now, I just have I'm more difficult to hit, which also helps triggering riposte more often, which is fairly useful. But otherwise, you can also take not the distracting strike, the menacing strike for frighten. Frighting is a pretty powerful debuff as well, considering they get disadvantage and all that stuff for 2 turns, which is very, very potent. If you want to take more than 3, don't worry. You will get an opportunity to add more to it. But I found that disarming attack and the riposte were like my go-to, and then I took evasive footwork for some utility in case I was overwhelmed. It has saved me a few hits every now and then, which is very, very good. Moving on to the next level, we would now be level 8, which means, of course, a new feat. Now, we took Athlete. You could take the ability improvement and push to 20, but I do recommend taking Great Weapon Master no later than level 8 right now. The fact that you get an extra attack for a bonus action on a kill or a crit is just going to completely scale you out of control, because you do get a lot of kills, especially if you start bonking on weaker targets. You take the -5 to penalty, but we have reckless attack anyway to offset as well as high strength. And of course, the +10 to bonus damage is going to make sure that the great weapon bonus attack also triggers. And +10 bonus damage on 2 hits per turn is just insane once we get extra attack, of course. On top of the fact that if you do get a third one, it's just 30 free damage, because it's very difficult to miss due to reckless attack and maybe even precision attack if you had taken that maneuver. So just take the Great Weapon Master and consider yourself to be a god. Now, this is once again the respec path we took, because we were quote-unquote at least level 9 or higher, and we respec into this build. We would have already had extra attack if we had taken the Barbarian 5. At this point, because we are level 9, we would actually redo the respec and indeed go to Fighter 5 to pick up the extra attack here, and then stay Barbarian 4. It's entirely up to you which path you take, as long as you end up with Barbarian 4 and Fighter 5 at level 9. And that's all you really need, because the extra attack is going to be an incredible boost of power. Level 6 Fighter gives us another feat. Very, very important, because fighters get more feats. People don't realize that oftentimes, which allows us also to get the ability score to +20 and capping out our strength, at least our natural strength. There are items in the game that facilitate a higher score beyond 20, but that's only through those items. And that's pretty much all you really need to do at 6. It's fairly straightforward and easy. At level 7, we get an additional superiority die, going from 4 per short rest to 5 per short rest, giving us a total of 15 mini smites. And also, we get to pick up 2 more maneuvers. Very strong. I'm going to pick up the trip attack for the prone benefits because my main character is also a meleeer. And then I'll probably... Let's see which one might be nice. I mean, Rally could be a lifesaver. So I'm going to do Rally just because I want to be able to save my healer or a character perhaps in need with some temporary hit points. And I think that is going to be a-okay. Also, you could still take Precision Attack right now if you notice you have missed or missed a bunch of attacks due to the Great Weapon Master depending on your gear. But it should not be too much of an issue because there's a lot of attack bonuses you can find on gear if it is at all necessary. Because once you start knocking people prone or you have Reckless Attack, it's very easy to hit things even without massive attack bonuses from gear. And then we, of course, have the level 8, which gives us another feat. And at this point, it's entirely up to you. Now, I would have preferred to take maybe Polearm Master if I was doing if that bonus action perhaps worked and I was really trying to push that to max. But it's entirely up to you what you take right here. Some people prefer Savage Attacker, which allows it so that when you make a weapon attack, which is all we really do, you roll damage dice twice and take the highest result. This gives you a very high consistent damage output, which is definitely a good option if you don't take pole arms or if you don't use pole arms. If you notice yourself failing a lot of saving throws, Resilient is pretty good. Tough if you really want to double down on the tank. We go from 117 to 141 HP, and of course if we rage, it kind of effectively gets doubled. Weapon Master is not important because we already have all martial weapons. Lucky could be really good if you want to be consistent. Mage Slayer if you want to deal with the shenanigans of casters, which can be a lifesaver. A lot of annoying casters in the game. But it's entirely up to you. I, at this point, prefer Savage Attacker or just another ability score improvement to get my Constitution up to 18. And that's pretty much all I really need. But it's entirely up to you. Savage Attacker is nice. Savage Attacker is nice. But I already have Great Weapon Master fighting anyway. So it's entirely up to you. I'll let you decide which one you prefer there. I like a little bit of more AC because I am using... I'm not using medium armor. Because I'm using the Bone Spy Garb. So I got 18 AC now, which is nice. It helps me trigger Riposte as well, which is the extra attack through my reaction. If I was wearing Armor of Agility, I would probably go Savage Attacker here. Because the extra con would have not mattered too much for the AC. Let's give back the items to the characters. And as you can see, your action bar is also pretty clean. Just make sure that you have your backbreakers, your special moves at the ready, your utility spells, your Misty Steps, your racials. Concussive Smash is really nice. Grand Slam is phenomenal, which is part of the weapon. Reckless Attack doesn't have to be on your bar, simply because if you look at the reactions, you can ask it to always ask you if you miss an attack. It automatically will ask you if you want to try a Reckless Attack to make sure you can hit again. So make sure you set that up correctly. Tenacity is always nice as well. If you miss an attack, deal 5 bludgeoning damage anyway. You don't have to ask that. It will automatically do it then. And from that point forward, you have a very consistent character that can see the enemy, knock them prone, disarm them, and just also even save people with rally or heal themselves. Just make sure you also have your rage, because that's always what you want to do when you can make sure to also be able to attack. Don't rage too early if the enemy is too far away, because otherwise you might already lose your rage before you can even reach them. You only have 3 charges per long rest, because we only are a level 4 Barbarian. But other than that, this will give you an incredible partner in crime on something like, let's say, your main character, which we saw on our previous video, if you have missed that, which also uses Great Weapon Master, and of course uses the Halberd. So, thank you all so much for watching. Hopefully this gave you an access or an idea for an accessible build using Fighter and not Paladin. Other people enjoy Paladin for the higher burst damage. I enjoy the control and the tank. And it has not failed me yet. Like I said, she single-handedly has completely nullified bosses on Tactician because of this build. It has been an absolute blast, and she doesn't die with the gear that I have, the amount of health I got access to with rage and such. Have a good time. Thank you so much for watching. Hit the subscribe button, and I will see you guys next time.